What does it mean to know something? What exactly do you mean when you say, oh yeah, I know what a pineapple tastes like, or I know what the color red looks like? David Hume, a Scottish philosopher who, among other things, is known for his highly influential system of empiricism. And if empiricism sounds a bit too academic, don't worry, we'll get to the bottom of it in just a few minutes. For now, let's dive into the very heart of Hume's philosophy. In his treatise of human nature, he writes that all the perceptions of the human mind resolve themselves in two distinct kinds, which I shall call impressions and ideas. The difference between these, Hume says, consists in the degrees of force and liveliness with which they strike upon the minds and make their way into our thought or consciousness. Those perceptions which enter with the most force and liveliness we call impressions. These include all our sensations, passions, and emotions as they make their first appearance in our minds. Impressions are those vivid, direct sensory experiences we have right here and right now, like the warmth of the sun on your skin or the sound of my voice at the moment. By ideas, Hume means faint images of impressions in thinking and reasoning. So when I'm eating pineapple, I have vivid, direct sensory experience of its taste, but the next day or even a week later, when I'm trying to recall that taste, I can still do it, but my remembering of its taste would be a faded copy compared to the direct experience of tasting it. And that's it. Everything you can recall is a faded copy of some impression you once had. Then Hume writes, all our simple ideas in their first appearance are derived from simple impressions, which are correspondent to them and which they exactly represent. An idea is dependent on impression. We have the experience first, and based on that, the idea emerges. Simply put, no idea can exist unless an impression came before it, and that is exactly what empiricism is, the philosophical theory that all knowledge is derived from sensory experience, evidence, and observation rather than innate ideas or reason alone. To disprove Hume's view, it's enough to come up with at least one example of an idea without a preceding impression, and Hume does that in that very chapter, but that's just a rabbit hole for another video. You might have noticed that when I quoted Hume, I said simple ideas and simple impressions. That's right, David Hume divides perceptions into simple and complex. Look at this scheme I made. We got simple perceptions, which are simple impressions and simple ideas. And we get complex perceptions, which are analogical. Imagine an apple. It consists of taste, temperature, color, and texture. This is what Hume calls a complex impression. Now focus only on the color of this apple. Imagine a specific shade of red, for example. You can't break that color down further. Color doesn't consist of anything. It is what it is. And that's what Hume calls a simple impression. So simple perceptions are the atoms of our minds. They're indivisible, like a single color or a single scent. You can break them down. Complex perceptions, on the other hand, are like Lego sets. They're made of parts. An apple, as I said, is complex because it combines color, shape, taste, etc. Here's the catch. While every simple idea must come from a simple impression, our mind can create complex ideas that never existed in reality. We can imagine a horse with the head of a pig because we've seen horses and pigs separately. We just mix them up in our heads. Here is how Hume himself put this. I observe that many of our complex ideas never had impressions that corresponded to them, and that many of our complex impressions never are exactly copied in ideas. I can imagine to myself such a city as the New Jerusalem, whose pavement is gold and walls are rubies, though I never saw any such. I have seen Paris, but shall I affirm I can form such an idea of that city as will perfectly represent all its streets and houses in their real and just proportions? And here we go. Every simple idea has a simple impression which resembles it, and every simple impression a correspondent idea. That idea of red which we form in the dark and that impression which strikes our eyes in sunshine differ only in degree, not in nature. But what about complex ideas and impressions? As I said earlier, for complex perceptions, the rule of resemblance fails. Hume points out that many of our complex ideas have never had a matching complex impression, like a horse with the head of a pig or a golden city. At the same time, many of our complex impressions are so intricate that our resulting ideas are only partial, blurry copies of the original experience, like in Hume's example of Paris. For Hume, when you say, I know what a pineapple tastes like, it means that at least once in your life you had vivid experience of tasting it in the past, and now your knowledge of this taste is just faint, blurred copy of previous original sample. And this principle is universal. For Hume, everything you know is based on previous experience, and if you don't know something, for instance, what the color red looks like, it means that you didn't have direct impression of this color, never seen one. Think about it. If you were locked in a pitch black, silent room from birth, with nothing but your own mind, you would know nothing. You wouldn't know what a color is, what a sound is, or what life itself feels like. Your mind would be a complete blank. So yeah, your mind is just a faded copy.